The global supply chain sector has recorded a number of disruptions over the past couple of years. The COVID-19 pandemic and Russia's conflict with Ukraine have been two of the major disruptions over the last 6 years. I had the opportunity to speak with some researchers in the supply chain industry. Professor Nathaniel Boso, Director at the Center for Applied Research and Innovation Africa, CARISCA, and Professor Dale Rogers, founder and co-author of the Logistics Managers Index. Professor Rogers, who is also the executive chair of CARISCA, provides further insight into the dynamics of the global supply chain.
Well, what's interesting is while COVID was a terrible thing in the global supply chain, for certain participants, it was a good time. I mean, transportation rates went way up during COVID, both in the U.S. and in Ghana, as the supply chains got broken and stretched, and so while it was a horrible thing and a lot of people died, particularly in the U.S., it also for some companies were able to take advantage of it. But it really was like fighting a war, where you switched into maybe making different products, distributing different products, and then all of a sudden, after COVID was over, then there was a real shift in consumer demand, and you started doing different products. It kind of takes a while to turn the faucets back on to fill up those supply chains.
How has the rebound been? Have we seen a pickup in the growth of the sector, or it's still slow yet?
It has sped up, and really what's happened, it's been surprising. You know, in the U.S., it was anticipated that we would be in a recession by now, but it really hasn't, because what happened is that we need to fill up those inventories with different stuff following COVID, and consumers are still buying stuff. Consumers really globally are still purchasing things, and so the warehousing activity, you know, it was interesting, both the US LMI and the Ghana LMI, both of them saw incredible growth. So we're still seeing an expansion in the economy.
Okay, let me come to you, Prof. Boso. Now, Dale, you know, Professor Dale paints a very good picture of what's happening globally. Now, how does Ghana fit into this?
Okay, so you see, it's the case that Ghana is part of the global economy, and whatever happens around the world affects Ghana just as it affects any other country, particularly in the case that Ghana is pretty much an import-based economy, which means that if there's any little disruption to supply chains globally, it affects everything in Ghana. And so when the Ukraine-Russian conflict started, you all knew what happened to the price of bread. The price just went up. Did we understand why? Was it based on, was it demand driven? No. It's clear from Dale's argument that it was supply driven. So I think that the important thing that we should be talking about as far as Ghana is concerned is that we need to have indicators, empirically driven indicators that tell us how our economy is moving from supply side. And so what we are doing at CARISCA, starting with the LMI, is to try to develop these kind of indicators across time.
Okay.
So that over time, we can see how our economy is moving.
So what is this LMI you are talking about? I know it's the Logistics Managers Index, but what exactly does it entail and what does it measure?
Well, we do it here in CARISCA at KNUST, and we also do it, I started it 8 years ago, a little over 8 years ago in the US, and it's become an important leading indicator. It's been the number of the month, every month for the last 2 years in the Wall Street Journal. JP Morgan, Goldman Sachs, Bank of America, they all use it as a measure of the economy. And what it does is it measures changes in warehousing. It's really 7 components. changes in warehousing utilization and capacity, and prices. It's same thing for transportation capacity, prices, and utilization. And then it's inventory levels and prices. And we look whether those are going up or going down. It's a change index where we base everything on a scale of 100. So if it's above 50, it's increasing. If it's below 50, it's decreasing. And we can really see a few months ahead of time what's going to happen with the product side of the economy, both in the U.S. and also in Ghana.
The overall Logistics Managers Index for Ghana for Q1 of 2024 reduced by 0.9 percentage points to 62.4. This depicts a slight decrease in the movement of goods in the country's logistics sector, while inventory costs grew by 1.2 percentage points to hit 81.1. Aggregate logistics costs remained fairly stable at 245.4. Professor Emmanuel Kwanzaa, co-author of the Ghana Logistics Managers Index, shares the details of the report.
Well, in the first quarter of 2024, we realized our overall LMI value stands at 62.4, and that is a little bit slightly down by 0.9% from the previous quarter, which was 2023. That was at 63.3. And so that is not quite a great decrease. So it's almost it's not that much. Interestingly, the values of all key indicators are above the threshold of 50%. So it means that the logistics industry is in growth mode. What we find most of the time is that the metrics with the highest values are the cost metrics, inventory costs, transportation prices, and warehousing prices. And transportation prices, since we began this index, has always been the metric with the highest value. And earlier on, Professor Dale Rogers was comparing the Ghana LMI with the US LMI. And it's interesting that in the US also, transportation metrics happen to be the metric with the highest value. So in general, the logistics industry is in growth mode. Logistics cost, the three metrics of inventory, transportation, and warehousing are quite high. And that is quite obvious due to what is happening on the macroeconomic side of things, and also on the forex trading. Inflation is a factor. General cost of doing business has gone up. And then the real issue, or the real contributing factor leading to this high inventory cost, is the depreciation of the CD against the dollar. And also, when global oil prices also happen to affect our transportation prices also. So there is some effect there also.
He projects a steady growth of the sector by the end of 2024.
Logistics activities will grow at a steady state, and there's a prediction of LMI increasing, the overall LMI value increasing to 65.9, and there's optimism that inventory levels will increase to 80.1. That's a high level of optimism, looking at the current inventory level of 55.5. And like I explained, is due to a high inventory cost. So organizations are not able to purchase as much as they used to. And so predicting that to move to 80.1 is being quite optimistic. And I guess one of the indicators is because we are expecting a tranche of that IMF financing. And then also, I don't know if the election year is a factor, but there's that optimism that macroeconomic indicators might improve. And so inventory costs will go down.
Prof. Dale, now for you, and with benefit of having an overview of the U.S. market, what do you think are some of the policies that should be implemented to ensure that we witness or we see a growth of the sector?
Well, a huge thing is the infrastructure here. It's really interesting to me working over here in Ghana a little bit. I know just enough to be dangerous, I'm sure. But if you look at the infrastructure across Africa, it it clearly was built to serve like the colonial master kind of economies, and it wasn't really built to serve the people here and across the continent. And so a huge policy issue, I think, is figuring out the infrastructure.
What do we do to ensure that we have an effective chain to be able to make sure that the trade, or the African trade we dream of, indeed comes to fruition?
Yeah, I think the AfTA seems to be a nice solution to the problem of free movement of goods and services across the continent. But then, AfTA is going to face a challenge. There are two of them. One of them speaks back to what they were just saying, infrastructure. Try to move goods and services. Don't even think about capital from Ghana to Togo. You know what I mean? So the point is, are we going to use the road infrastructure? Are we going to use flights? Are we going to use the sea? If you try to use any of those things, I can tell you, moving goods from London to United States is cheaper because of infrastructure limitations. But then, related to that, is the challenge of lack of regulatory synchronization. To what extent are regulations across the African market such that they are seamless and interconnected? And I was telling somebody this morning that one regulatory issue that I have a strong feeling will be a stumbling block for after success is currency. To what extent are we ready as African governments and policymakers to let go our currencies, to adopt a common currency like the European Union have done, to facilitate free movement of goods and services?
On the contrary, some believe that Africa does not need a single currency. Rather, a harmonized digital payments platform will be the game changer. We spoke with Dr. Abdul Samed Muntaka to discuss how digital payments platforms have impacted the supply and logistics chain.
You will see a steady growth in the use of the electronic system. In fact, the last one recorded a 73.9, if my memory serves me right, and it is projected to reach 83.9. It tells us that the use of these electronic systems is going to grow. So for people in policy, it is important to note that if we want to reduce the use of fiscal cash in our operations, especially in the logistics and supply chain sector, which involves huge movement of products, it is important that we don't do too much to try and burden these payments through taxes. They look like a soft spot for getting tax revenue, but it also is a system that will make movement of goods, products, and people faster. So today I've transferred a number of money to Kumasi, for example, and I didn't have to leave this room. So think of me as a business, a CEO. I can make payments across the world, across the length and breadth of Ghana. The kind of effect we are expecting to see is a seamless flow, so that now, long gone will be the days where when you say you have made payment, I have to wait for an hour or two to see that the payment has been done. This time, it is almost like partial, like we see it in Ghana. As soon as it is sent, you see it, and you are able to take the necessary decision. So we are going to begin to see faster decisions. We are going to begin to see a continuous flow of the supply chain. There will be less breakages due to payment issues.
With inflation expected to hit 19% by the end of 2024 and the general improvement in Ghana's macroeconomic scene, the supply and logistics chain is expected to record significant gains by the end of the year. The 2024 elections are also expected to contribute to this growth. Globally, supply constraints, technological advancement in logistics facilities, and a shift in the capital market cycle is expected to impact operations in the sector.